Thank you very much, and good afternoon, everybody. It looks a great room, huh? So I'm happy I was not here during the day, but it looks full. Huh? So they are all executive directors, Thierry, representative, and let's fake that Ivailo is here. It's certainly here with us in spirit. I looked at your agenda. I was impressed. I'm sure Cosmin was the mastermind behind, but I was impressed that you managed to bring both Parliament and Council, and I think that's quite something. What I want to do with you tonight, now, don't worry, will not be very long. I know I'm the last obstacle before well-deserved drinks, is first of all look at the EU policy on labor mobility, in particular at the few things we have done and the few things that we are about to do. As you know, there is a big thing called the Fair Labor Mobility Package, which is about to come. And then I will want to have a look at the AI and digitalization, a subject which in the last few minutes I was here, I noticed that it was touched. And then, of course, I will be more than happy to take any question that you want to raise. So first of all, EU labor mobility. Clearly, we are going in a situation where the labor market will be tighter and tighter. There's no doubt. Demography is very clear. We have some help from education. We have fewer people, but they are more and more educated, so they work a bit more. But still, we have fewer people. So it's obviously clear that the labor market will be very tight, and the help that could come from labor mobility is actually quite big, because basically it allows to, if you want, désenclaver, to take out of the national enclave the 27 labor market and make a single European labor market. Actually, there are about 16 million people, which if they were a member state, they would be as big as Netherlands. There are about 16 million people, 14 of which they have changed their country regularly, the people sitting here, obviously, and 2 million of which they travel every day to another country to work. There is an interesting statistics that says that about 1/3 of the EU population lives 60 kilometers from a border. I don't need to say to people living in Bratislava, I think you have the concept very clear in you, but maybe, if you live in Madrid or in Rome, you may have less of a thought of that type, but about 1/3, and this is due, of course, to the big population in Netherlands, in Germany, in Belgium, and so on and on, but about 1/3 of the EU population lives 60 kilometers from a border. So we have 14 million people who are outside and 2 million people who commute every day. And of course, if you want labor mobility to function and to be successful, people, in addition to move themselves, they should be sure that also the social security benefit move with them and they actually follow them. In 2023 only, about 5.5 million portable documents, A1, the famous A1 or infamous, were issued to clarify the legislation which is applicable. Our view is very simple. As you know, the Commission, we are bureaucrats. Many of us are economists with two hands, so we look at supply and demand in many things, and we try, so on the demand side, simplify application, enforcement of posting rules, social security coordination, and make sure on the demand side that people can navigate that. As you know, this commission, the von der Leyen Commission, is very strong on simplification at all levels. So the ability of people to navigate the rules is crucial. Just before being here, we visited an ESF Plus project, not something particularly exciting, but something of which we are very proud. Denis, myself, Marta, it was a shelter here in Bratislava, a shelter for homeless people. One of the questions that Denis aptly posed was, is it simple or not for you to get access to our money? Our money contributes to that, not a huge amount, but significant to keep few people in the world, but the simplification issue is crucial. So this must arrive. We do it for the shelter, we do it for everything, we must be able to do it also here. And on the supply side, of course, what we want is to be able to empower the authorities, empower all of you who are here and you are from authorities, In what? In protecting the mobile workers, fighting unfair competition and social dumping, and fighting against fraud. I think the empowerment of the authorities, making sure that authorities are good enough, is crucial. If we achieve those two things, simplification, ability to navigate, empowerment of the authorities, then the rest, which is the fair labor mobility package, should come much easier. What there is in the fair labor mobility package, what logically there should be. I'm, if you want, reasoning with you among colleagues and friends. The fair labor mobility package will be out in the third quarter 2026, so many things can still change. The Commission is sovereign, the Commission acts as a college, so whatever I'm saying now is just an idea of what there could be. But I think there are 3 or 4 elements on which I hope you would agree. Element number 1, COSMIN, ELA mandates. ELA mandates, I think we need to really think a lot about the enlargement of the ELA mandates. Let me tell you a little story about ELA that most of you know. In the past, when I was working in the financial area, where I worked for 16 years, I sat on the board of something called similarly to ELA, which was called EBA, was the European Banking Authority, and I know there used to be one person who moved from the European Banking Authority to the European Labour Authority, and now that person moved back to something financial. The EBA, when did we create the EBA? I remember pretty well because it was at the peak of the financial crisis, so when we were working in that. Before the EBA, there was something called CEBS, C-E-B-S, which meant Committee of European Banking Supervisors, exactly like the labor supervisors, but they were supervising banks. Was it effective? No. Why? Because it was a committee. A committee decides at unanimity, so forget. Basically, it was simply impossible to do it. And when the water started becoming very high, the water of the financial crisis, and we had a big issue. The big issue was that banks were lacking capital, as simple as that, which is not very different from the labor market lacking workers. Basically, that's the fuel of the labor market. When we had that, we created the EBA. The proposal was 2007, 2008, at the peak of the financial crisis. We created the EBA. It took a few years to install, exactly like the ELA, and then progressively we reinforced the EBA. And that took us out of the financial crisis. I mean, if you think 15 years ago, banks were at the center of the problem. Banks were the problem of Europe, right? Problem of Europe, the financial stability of Europe were banks in 2007, 2008, 2009, because they lacked capital. Then we fixed it, and now banks are at the center of any solution. We saw it with COVID, we saw it with the banking crisis, and so on and on. So if we redo the ELA mandate with the same logic to expand, what do we have to do? Well, first of all, enhancing data handling competencies. Data are crucial, of course. You don't have data, forget. Improve the cooperation between member states. The cooperation between member states often is very crucial pour sortir par les hauts, as the French say. So instead of debating, I do this, I do that, you have the ELA doing it, and you both are in the governance of the ELA, or 3 or 4 are in the governance of the ELA, and then it works. Third country nationals, they much prefer to have an authority to whom to speak rather than a college or several group of people or whatever. And then the development of EURES, on which I will come a second ago. So I think that the reinforcement of the ELA mandate that we have advocated in the ELA review, and that which encounters a relatively good wind in the sails in the European Parliament, should probably be at the center. The second is what goes under the not particularly sexy acronym of SPAS, the European Social Security Pass. And that's what we want to do there, is really to facilitate much more the instant verification of the validity and the authenticity of all the portable documents. The idea, of course, is to use the wallet technology, on which we are spending lots of time at the Commission. There are inter-service groups going ahead, which took us all out of the COVID crisis, as we know very well. We came out of the COVID crisis with the wallet technology because we had the COVID certificate in the wallet technology. And member states are advancing. You may be surprised, but the Italians, just to take one, they have now their license in the wallet. I don't because I have a Belgian license, but had I kept my Italian license, which would have been forbidden given that I moved 30 years ago, I would now have zero probability to lose it because it would be in my telephone and in my wallet. Last week or 2 weeks ago, we did a high-level meeting on digitalization in social security coordination, and that was very much at the center. The wallet, we had the Director General of DG Connect coming and explaining. But the electronic exchange of social security information, the SC system, is also another prime example where these can work very well. The third is the skills portability initiative. The skill portability initiative, it's obviously a competitiveness angle. You are an expert in your area. We want to create the single market. It's good that you do. Plus, as a Director General of Employment and Social Affairs and Inclusions, I cannot refrain to tell you that till now, the skills portability is a little bit regressive because the top skills are very portable. If you are a doctor everywhere. If you are a surgeon everywhere. But the lower you go, and lower is not denigrative, of course, but the more you go toward some arts métiers, so to speak, if in a country there is a certification in order to be a plumber, then in another country you may have difficulty to be recognized as a plumber, even if your pipes are perfect, and whenever you fix it, it works very well. So the skill portability initiative has certainly a competitiveness angle, but it also has a social angle, which I think we want to have. And then finally, and this is what I heard when I arrived, of course, the e-declaration, multilingual public interface for declaring posted workers via the IMEI market. I think all of this is something, once again, on which many of us agree. Something that a few years ago would probably not be imaginable, but the progress of artificial intelligence, the progress of digitalization are such that we can do it. As we know, at the Commission we have several pieces, and that's why, for example, last week, several pieces of legislation, and that's why, for example, the other week we met with the head of cabinet and the Director General of DG Connect to see how you integrate together the AI Act, for example, the Interoperable Europe Act, but also our platform work. There are several legislative pieces which I think is worth to put together. Interoperability across sectors is another thing that must be used a lot. This is a great opportunity, actually, that lies in front of us, and we need to have it. Of course, artificial intelligence, in addition to opportunities, bring challenges. One obvious challenge is that it enters in each and every job. In some job, it has entered already a lot. Think of translation, for example. Years ago, to do a translation, we had a different procedure that we have it now. After translation is entering interpretation, not fully well, sometimes it's funny. I will tell you later or at dinner if you want over a glass of wine, of an experiment that we did with another Italian who speaks with a Roman accent, and I was speaking with a Milanese accent and was incredibly funny. The artificial intelligence was completely lost in the park, but still, I'm sure in a few years they will be able to do it. And then progressively we'll enter in all the jobs. I mean, my hairdresser is a bit concerned. He tells me, do you think I will retire before the artificial intelligence enters in my job? I say, yes, probably yes. But thanks to artificial intelligence, you will be able, for example, to take better rendezvous, to keep the pictures of the people, how they are before being coiffé, and how they are after being coiffé. So there are many things that you can do. So artificial intelligence is entering into the job. That is a challenge, but again, is a challenge that I think, considering the demography, considering that from now till 2030 we will lose more than 1 million workers a year, so we have less and less people. The fact that artificial intelligence puts up the productivity is not a big drama. And then, of course, what we want to do is looking at always have an opinion from the public, the social partners and everybody else. We just, for example, concluded now the second phase of the right to disconnect and telework. These days, you will hear us a lot speaking about quality job. There are two initiatives coming up, one soon, the so-called quality job roadmap, and will come up in the next few weeks. As you know, the Commission doesn't like to give the exact date, but from now till Christmas, there are 7 or 8 Commission meetings. At one of the 7 or 8 Commission meetings, the quality job roadmap will be there. And then next year, there will be what Ursula von der Leyen announced in her Soteo, in the State of the Union speech, which is the Quality Job Act. So these are the two big things on quality job, where, of course, artificial intelligence will matter a lot. To conclude, we are very, very convinced that digitalization is an asset, provided it's well framed, provided we respect the fundamental principle. For example, last year, the G20 had a fundamental principle which is human-centric. Human-centric means that if you are fired by an algorithm, then you can go to a human person to ask why. If it is not human-centric, you are fired by an algorithm and you go to another algorithm who tell to complain and ask why. And probably he will tell you what the first algorithm has given to you. This is a bit of a crude example, but that's exactly what we mean. Actually, human-centric even means that the first algorithm that fires you has been checked by a human. So we think digitalization is there to help us, provided is well framed. The forum that you have had today, and congratulations again to Cosmin and all the other colleagues for having put it up. I think the forum we have had today is very indicative of all of that. And I really hope that this forum has served as a source of inspiration for all of you, for all the national authorities, to further invest and promote digital tools. And as I said, happy to take any question before the drink. Thank you very much.